So welcome, everybody, to the As Told by You podcast. We have a guest today, Tyler, who is one of the people that I've been working with the longest. How about that?
It's been a hot minute, man.
It's been a hot minute. I think I first worked with Tyler in 2008 or 9, something like that. And so I've known him a long time. So it's good to have you on the podcast.
I appreciate it.
I know that you are a kind of host of things, a master host of things.
From time to time.
From time to time. You're also a accomplished weatherman. So talk about what you're doing right now. What does the Tyler Ryan world look like?
So, my full-time bread and butter gig is working at ABC Columbia. I'm one of the hosts of the morning show, the meteorologist in the morning show. That means, I do the weather and I do the majority of any interviews, we do with the morning show, as any morning show really. We do a lot of community stuff. I go from the weather to interviewing some serious things, PTSD, and then the next segment I could be getting literally a pie in the face with Ringling Brothers clowns. So it's kind of a cool gig, and that's kind of my, like I said, the bread and butter, I suppose. The reason I get up at 2 a.m. Which never gets easy.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Never gets easy.
That's what I hear.
And then of course I've done the way we met. I do a lot of freelance. I do marketing. I build websites, but I do a lot of freelance hosting. And you'll see me if you watch like Snapped or Killer Couples. From time to time, you'll see me on hosting one of those. My two backgrounds are law enforcement and journalism, are my two primary careers in my life. And so, we're doing a crime show. I'm that talking head, that's that unique. I'm a police detective and an investigative journalist. So it cuts to me. And, if Bill hadn't brought that guy in for the podcast, he'd still be alive today.
I love the cadence, too. If he didn't brought it in for the podcast, he'd still be alive today.
So
dramatic pause.
You were a detective?
Yes, sir. Yep.
For how many
I didn't
years?
find that out until I had known him for several years.
And it takes a while to become a detective.
Yeah.
So it's not like you just come out of academy and become a detective.
I made the rank quickly. Just I had a great opportunity and a good leader at the time. I was going to college for journalism, for broadcasting, and about my junior year, I was kind of like, being a DJ and this is fun, but all my friends are joining the force or getting in the military. I was like, man, I feel like something I need to do. So I graduated college, started applying to police departments, and pestered the heck out of a chief until one day he said, listen, will you stop calling me if I hire you? And I said, yeah, man, no problem. And so I kind of started that law enforcement career. Worked about part-time for about a year, got a full-time gig, working the road, making $18,500 a year. And this wasn't all that long ago to be $18,500 a year. But
it's something.
It's something.
It's something.
I had a full-time big boy job out of college. And a smaller, I guess the same size, they're small departments, asked me to come over and work in investigations and be a patrolman. I was a young guy, room full of older officers who've been in there a long time. And they wanted me to work with the schools and things because I still was fairly young, looked fairly young at the time. And so, I could relate to the kids a little better than the old guys they had in the force. And so did that. And this is back in the mid-'90s when Clinton had all this cops grants. And he was, giving money to training, increasing budgets, and getting officers on the street. And, we're working on the crime. And so we had all this training money. And so every time the chief would say, hey, does anybody want to go to this school, I was like, yeah, I'm going. And so I fast-tracked.
Jump Street right here.
Right? Yeah, that's right.
And I did narcotics for a bit. I did reverses, where you wheel up and say, hey, man, I want a bag. And then they say, cool, and then you snap them. But I didn't do the whole Johnny Depp long hair. I looked like a cop, and that was my whole secret was he's not a cop because he looks like one. No cop's going to look like a cop. Gotcha. But I ended up actually going into sex crimes. And so my specialty was child abuse and sexual assault cases. So I became a detective for that. And, this is in Vermont, and Vermont's kind of different than here. Here, you can only have one commission. You can only be sworn to one agency or, whatever. In Vermont, we have statewide jurisdiction. So everybody, I can stop somebody for speeding in Burlington or Brattleboro, it doesn't matter. The other thing is you can be sworn at as many agencies as you want to because you got to pay the bills. So I was full-time at one and part-time at like 3 others as the detective for them. So a small agency doesn't have somebody who specializes. They just pay me basically per diem. And I got involved with the ICAC, the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. So we're doing the kiddie cases and child molester cases. And we had a small unit because, I mean, think about this. In Vermont at the time, and still now, there are twice as many policemen in the Midlands than the entire state of Vermont.
Yeah.
There's about 750 full-time cops in Vermont, and there's 1,300 or more within 20 square miles of the studio. So we had a specialized unit, and we traveled around the state. So if Burlington had a case where you had a computer crimes case, there were a handful of us that knew how to do it, and so we'd go as a unit. So it was a really cool opportunity.
Huh.
But the whole time, and the reason I transitioned in, the whole time I was doing that, I was doing morning show radio. And this is before websites and YouTube and stuff, so nobody had a clue what we looked like. So for me, it was therapy. I'd go in the morning, and it wasn't quite Howard Stern, but pretty close. But it was therapeutic to go on the radio, act like an asshole. Can I say that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Good. Act like an asshole, and then go out on the road and put some really nasty guys in jail. And so it was therapy.
It's like I did both sides of the coin.
Yeah. I just yuck it up and have fun, and then I go out and do my job. So I actually moved to South Carolina to work at North Charleston Police. I came down to be cop, and I of course got a part-time gig working at Cat Country at the time. It's 107.5 The Game now, but at the time it was in Charleston. And this is 2002, 3, and this is when YouTube and video and radio are starting to morph. And the radio station, I was working part-time, they said, hey, we want to do this thing with one of the TV stations. Do you want to be that wacky guy on TV instead? And I said, seems like a pretty good idea. Money was better, sadly. And that's kind of how I made the transition in. Moved here in 2005. Now, I've kept my commission. I'm still sworn. I'm still certified. I've held on to my part-time commission the whole time. But, yeah, that's kind of how it came to be. Was I started there, transitioned, and, here I am.
I found out he was a cop because we were riding to Augusta for a shoot, and I found his badge in the car. And I thought it was fake. I was like, oh, that's weird. What do you got a badge for? He's like, oh, I'm a cop. I was like, no, you're not. I was like, no, you're not. I've known you for like a year or two here.
Right.
You're not a cop. What are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, it was a legit badge. I was like, oh, okay. That's people are faceted, multifaceted.
Does Curtis work at?
He does.
Okay.
Yeah, Curtis Wilson, my co-host at ABC. Yeah, he works. Yeah. What's funny? He and I, we now work together. But at the time when I first got here, I was working at Watch Fox and he was at LTX. But he and I are so parallel. I always call it, I don't know if it's Starsky and Hutch or it's Crockett and Tubbs. I'm not sure which.
You need your own show is what you need.
Right?
Yeah.
But, we both do TV. We both do radio. We both do law enforcement. We both do national stuff. We both host a lot. We're like literally the same. I'm a little taller. But we're like the same guy.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I watch a lot of those segments that you put up on Facebook and stuff. And I recognize that one of the things Tyler does is the Living in Columbia SC group, that I keep talking about that has 40-something thousand members. He'll do the weather report for that group.
Yep.
He'll be like, good morning, Living in SC Facebook group. Here's the weather for today. No reason to do that.
Just for fun?
Yeah, well, Janet...
Or did they ask you to do it?
Jeanette Womble, who actually is the founder of the group, she works for eXp Realty. This is her brainchild. She grew the group from, whatever the initial 500 people, whatever's in a group.
Yeah.
And about 3 years ago, she approached me because she's doing life coaching, business coaching, got a guy who helps her, whatever. And her goal was to build this thing to 50,000 people. And she, metrics, and she knew what she wanted. So she was trying to build it. She approached me and said, listen, I want to make this special. And I didn't know her from Adam. I mean, she reached out to me. I'm like, sounds interesting.
Yeah.
And, the whole idea is I'm potentially in front of 50,000 people every morning. That's my audience.
Yeah.
So for me, for the TV station, it's
Makes
a great
lot of
opportunity.
Sense, yeah. And I've talked to her about coming on the podcast a couple of times, and she and I had talked about it a couple of times. We haven't come up with a date yet, but like I'd love to have her on because obviously, developing this group is and there's a couple of these Soda City connectors and a couple of them that are a lot of people in them. Which is pretty interesting.
I think, and I'm one of her admins now, but not to speak for the secret to her sauce, but, consistency is the key with growing it. And she's got very specific rules, what she allows, what she doesn't allow. I know some of the sites or some of the groups, you get just a lot of crap that it doesn't matter.
This is
really
always civil.
Good.
It's always a good discourse. And when people ask for stuff, it's always like cool.
So she's worked hard, and I'm proud to be part of that group.
Shout out
in
to
Columbia,
Jeanette.
SC.
Yeah,
Jeanette Womble, EXP Realty.
That's right. That's a good one. Do you know her from real estate?
No.
Brian almost always knows people from real estate. So
there's one or two real estate agents around town.
Yeah, just a few.
Yeah, they
a few.
It's not quite as easy a job as it used to be.
No.
A couple years ago, it was pretty easy.
Right, but now, as I understand, now you actually basically have to kind of say what your commission is and earn it, and if you're not offering the right commission, other agents won't show your house. From what I understand, this is what I understand, but it's changed dramatically from hey, I know the percentage I'm going to get when I sell a house.
Yeah. It is an interesting business. Well, so I am fascinated with what keeps you doing this after all this time, especially law enforcement. Like, what keeps you doing this after all the time of doing it?
And it sounds hokey, but I promise it's not a staged response. The law enforcement side, I just have a duty to serve. I always have. You'll find me when I do events. I do military and first responders all the time, and those, if someone comes to me from that background, I'm there for it. I'm here for it. I'm a police, and that's what I'm always going to be. And I'm an old school police. I'm not a kinder, gentler, politically correct, community oriented cop. I'm a on the street, get it done. Bad guys go to jail. Old school police. That's just me, and that's just in me. I enjoy that. I like the service aspect. I like being able to help people, and so that's there. And as far as what I do with journalism, I like to tell stories. I like the meteorology side when it's bad, when it's hurricanes. I like to be able to, I guess maybe it's still that service. I'm trying to help somebody. I'm giving information to say, listen, you're not safe right now. You need to get safe. It's, I guess I kind of compare the two very similar. People say, how do you go from being a detective to a journalist? It's the same job. My job as a detective is to sit down with you, get to know you, get you to tell me things you didn't maybe expect to tell me, building a relationship. Journalist is exactly the same way. You're sitting down with me, building a relationship, talking. And so I think the two jobs for me have the same mission at the end of the day. As if I'm doing an investigative story, if I'm doing a story on, who knows, whatever it might be, on ICAC, and it's a journalistic story, I'm telling a story that hopefully somebody is going to get something from. And so I think that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
Can you think of a story that you did in your career that you're like, oh yeah, I've really helped those folks because of it?
I've done several cold case stories through the career, through the job. We have been a part of solving a couple of the cases. The Jessica Gutierrez case was one that we worked very closely on. We were intimately tied to that. And the part of that, of course, is, at the end of the day, we don't get the glory for it, and that's fine. It's not what it's for. But my partner, Brian Cetri, and I were intimately tied into that case, and that was a big case for a small family of a young lady who was kidnapped and never found again, 20, 30 years ago. But, a lot of times, especially with like cold cases, the reality, the solvability is pretty low, but the victims or the families, they just want to feel like somebody cares and want to be heard. And so, I realize when I do the cases, I do a story, again, the likelihood that someone's going to, it's not the unsolved mysteries, and what's his name, William Stack, or whatever his name was, Robert Stack, I don't know, whatever it was. The reality is, okay, is there somebody going to drop a dime? Maybe. But I think what drives me in that is that you're listened to. You just want somebody to care, because it's a cold case. And if your name isn't the right name, or, whatever, let's face it, law enforcement is buried. There is not anywhere near police. There were way too many cases, and I'm a detective. I worked them. If I've got 4 cases come in at once, I'm going to try to get the hottest ones. And unfortunately, nothing new. It's going to go down, and it's not law enforcement's fault. It's a numbers game. There's not enough cops, and there's way too many cases. Yeah. And so, it's going to be easy for somebody to feel like they've been forgotten because there's no justice. There's nothing's come of it. There's nothing in the case. So, sitting down, and I can't tell how many people I sat and cried with, and they're just so emotional about just wanting to tell the story, wanting somebody to care. And viewers watch. Why so many true crime shows, man?
Yeah.
We're fascinated as strangers with crime, but that's a whole different thing.
That's because we all want to do it, but we can't. Right. We're not going to do it.
How do we do that?
We kind of hold ourselves back a little bit. Well, one of the memorable hosting things that I remember was the 9/11 memorial, doing the when they brought the pieces of the World Trade Center in front of the convention center. Tyler hosted the 10th anniversary, so this was 2011.
Yep, and I still do every year since we built the memorial.
Really, that's great.
Every single year.
I haven't been involved other than the first year, but that was a really heavy.
Yeah.
That was a really heavy service, you know, and it was just like we got to video it, make a video of it, which I was really proud of at the time.
You still should be. That video was
yeah.
was
I mean, it was just so good. But like, you know, that kind of thing is just so important, you know, when you can do stuff like that. So
yeah,
you know,
emotions run high. I like I said, every 9/11 since we incepted the memorial, we do the event. We do it in real time as to when the attacks happened. So we do it in the morning, and yeah, I mean, we honor all the fallen heroes since then from the Midlands, and it's a pretty heavy day for sure. But I'm so proud. That's probably my favorite thing annually to do is that one.
There's a police funeral going on right as I was going down Taylor Street today.
Was it really?
The funeral, that's the funeral home, Levy's.
Yeah.
They had, it was all Columbia Police Department police cops with their lights on, getting ready for the processional. So
well, I know like Jay Kilmartin.
I hadn't heard anyone dying.
Alex, they do a lot with the fire department, and there was a fireman that got killed in the line of duty in Irmo. I think last year. I think it was last year. But they hosted an event for them out here, and so we pulled into the office, and there's fire trucks like all through this parking lot that's normally pretty empty was full of fire trucks.
Right.
And I pulled up, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, I hope everything's okay, because I got hard drives in there, you know. Like, I don't have. Melt. I'm sure the people are fine, but I've got hard drives in there, you know. But yeah, they do a lot for the firemen, and I think that's a really cool thing. Yeah. So talk about the current state of media. So I know, you know, you're in a traditional media, you know, ABC Columbia is, you know, obviously one of the big 3 or 4. Where is media right now? What do you feel like is going on with media now?
I mean, it's moving so fast that I'm not sure when we're taping this and when it goes to air, but it could be different by then. I mean, it has changed so much, and part of that's COVID. And there's so many different things that have happened, you know, with media. Of course, the mass accessibility to equipment. You know, it used to be years ago, you know, you spent a ton of money and you had a camera and you have a big editing system and all this, and now you can pretty much do everything cinema movies on this. There actually are journalists, we call them one-man bands or MMJs, where you no longer have a photographer. You send your reporter is the photographer and the interviewer the editor. But even in major markets, they'll send them out with an iPhone, and we're shooting on these. We're not lugging around big cameras anymore. Just the whole thing's changed. But I think that the biggest thing is, you know, where people are getting their information from. You know, it's just like the radio that's changed so much. It used to be if the DJ wasn't playing the top 40, you didn't know what song was track 4 on the Bon Jovi record. You didn't know if it wasn't Living on a Prayer. You had to buy the album to figure it out. But just the accessibility to so much information has totally changed how we absorb it, how we get it, and not necessarily in a good way, because there's not really a way to tell, you know, if it's good media or not sometimes, you know. So you've really got to absorb it with, I guess, a critical thought as well.
It's starting to get to the point too where you don't know whether it's AI or not.
And that's scary, right?
I've seen some clips of like Joe Rogan, you know, and it'll be like Joe Rogan says something completely general and innocuous, and you're like, did he say that? And then it cuts to a guest that looks like he's on the Joe Rogan set, but you know it's like funky. You know, like there's that what do they call that? They call it the uncanny valley, right? You can tell that it's not real, you know, but I imagine it's going to get to a point where you can't tell. You know?
In the world of deep fakes and all that. I mean, I've seen, and I don't think it happens here, but we did a story a while ago. I want to say probably in China or Japan or whatever. They had like a absolutely AI news anchor.
Right.
You know, that's terrifying for guys who are in the news business. Right.
Yeah. Listen, we did a thing with the South Carolina Asphalt and Paving Association last week. They do asphalt paving, as you might imagine. And I asked him, what is the big factor in asphalt paving right now. He says, without a doubt, it's AI. AI
Really?
is changing asphalt paving. Now think
I
about
mean,
that.
tar is tar. How do you?
I wanted to ask, but we didn't have the time to develop it. I might have him on the podcast so we can ask about that.
I just want to
but
know
was like,
that.
Yeah, because you start to think to yourself, okay, things like, let's say, carpentry or paving or plumbing or roofing, none of this is going to be affected by AI, but all of these guys are looking at this stuff. And I mean, if the Asphalt Paving Association is worried about AI, I mean, can you imagine your business and my business are directly affected by
Absolutely.
by this stuff. And I mean, we had a photographer on last week, and she was saying that photography is being completely offset by this because of the fact that you don't necessarily have to have a professional do the work anymore. You know,
you go to Canva and give everything. I do incredible things in Canva. I'm like, dang, I'm good.
Not bad, right? Yeah.
You know?
Well, and she was talking about the guy at the state fair this past year that entered an AI piece in the art competition and won first place. and they found out some part way through the fair that it was AI, and they had it stripped of the prize and everything.
Oh, Nancy will come get you now. Don't be cheating. She'll come
Yeah,
get
well,
you.
look, I mean, you got away with it for a week or two, right?
Okay. All the glory, baby.
Yeah, that's right. You got it for just a minute, and then no more. You get it's all completely taken away. Well, we had talked to Donnie about TikTok and about how that sort of style of getting your information. This is what happens with like my wife. She doesn't watch the news, obviously.
Right.
She gets all of her information from TikTok or Facebook, and that's a kind of terrifying place to be, from that perspective.
Again, how do you check the credibility? How do you know the information's there? But it does, I think, impact the style of how we shoot too, or at least me.
Right.
I'm seeing more and more, and I've always shot more production than news. We've shot a lot together. I always like the production style shooting, even when I'm doing a newscast. I don't like using sticks. I like, shoulder. But even more so now, because that's how people are used to seeing the videos. You don't have just standing up, here's the news today. Even as a journalist working for ABC or Fox News Network or whatever, trying to find a much more engaging, creative way to tell the story than just standing there. So you're seeing a lot more of, you say, guerrilla type. It's, behind the scenes, like people like, I don't want to move the camera. You're going to see the other camera. I don't care. People know that there's a crew.
Yeah, they know there's a camera there.
The BTS is a great shot. I like the wide shots. Hey, this is what it looks like. We're doing television.
Yeah, you only care when you're kneeling in the hurricane and there's not actually a flood happening.
Well, yeah, there is that. There is that.
You don't
and
the
guy in the background is walking through going, what are they doing?
What are we talking about? Well,
so when you were describing it, I think part of the evolution of it will be the ability, because we get it all in snippets on our phone, the things that you do for the network on the camera, whatever, however you present it, ultimately has to be chopped up and issued this way.
Yeah, it really does. I mean,
So
smaller bites.
That's going to be the biggest change, evolution-wise, in terms of the stuff that they're doing at the network is still a valid way to do it. It just has to be done in a way that it can be digested in 15 seconds.
Well, and I think from a news perspective, the interesting thing about something like TikTok as an example is that there's an immediacy to it, right? If something's happening right now, then I can show you what's happening right now. I don't have to send it up to a producer. I don't have to get it approved. I can send it to you right now.
The guy who got off the upside down plane.
I was going to mention the upside down plane.
Instantly.
So I saw that this weekend. You know what I'm talking about, the United Airlines thing? So I saw that video and I said, that looks weird. What's weird about that? And I realized, the plane's upside down. Like, how did the plane get to be up? So it begs all these questions, right? And so then I watched the CNN news report about it to get the details, because the dude that's shooting the video is like, our plane just crashed and it's upside down and we're all out here freezing and I don't know what's going on, but it looks like everybody made it. And you're going, what in the hell's happening? Right?
Instantly worldwide.
My plane just crashed, right? I'm coming from Minneapolis to Toronto. I'm sitting out on a frozen lake with my upside down.
Where's my
plane.
phone?
And I was like, "Where's my phone?"
Well, I'm not getting off that plane without my phone.
My
Right?
TikTok followers need to hear about this.
You can't get your bag, but I'm bringing my phone with me.
So I thought, wow, that if there was ever a microcosm of the world,
I was
you know,
actually surprised there was only one guy filming it.
I know. I was like, why aren't there 4 angles of this? You know, I mean, it's crazy. But then you get CNN on, and they're just talking about, you know, they're using animated, you know, models of what might have happened, and you know, they have the Air Force pilot who says, you know, well, I flew into Toronto, you know, like I don't want to hear any of that. I want to be back down there with that guy on that lake, you know.
Well, you know, it almost gives you that. We're all into the VR. You know,
Yeah.
it gives you that first person feel. You know, when you're there. I mean, you're sitting here in the plane upside down. You're not talking about the retired general. You know, they must have been hanging upside down. I wonder how they did that.
Yeah.
This is how we did it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got the first person thing. You know,
Eventually, I feel like it's, you know, when we were describing it, right, all the 4, there should be more angles.
Right.
Then I'm thinking, are we just going to start wearing GoPros everywhere
Right,
we go?
all the
just
time.
like the dash cams. But then you're like, okay, well, they have the glasses.
I was gonna say, if the glasses ever take off,
if those
you know.
glasses start to be more affordable and easier to carry, then we're all going to be walking around with dash cams on our faces.
And
Right.
I'm telling you, I'm not a huge fan of that. You
Yeah.
know, some things should be just private. You know.
Well, there's a Black Mirror episode. I don't know if you've seen Black Mirror, but
have
it's
not.
something that I love a lot. So there's a Black Mirror episode where people record everything that they see, and then at any point that you want to remember what you said at that thing, or you want to recall that conversation, you just rewind it back and watch it in your mind, right?
Okay.
And so
So it's actually something in your mind, not like a pair
yeah,
of
so
glasses.
it's an implant, right?
Okay.
That records. But the thing is, like, if the glasses end up working, and it's you know, an infinite recording to the cloud or whatever it happens to be, you could theoretically do that. That's what a dash cam is for, right? If you get into an altercation, you can rewind it back and see whose fault it was. And I don't want to have conversations with my wife that I'm going, she's recording this,
Right.
And
They have the whole the ad campaign. I think it was Progressive or something.
Yeah.
You throw the flag and review it, and then they go back and the red flag for the review, and you go back and like, they did say that.
Yeah.
Like,
I can see where your tone is misconstrued on that one, so I'm going to call that for her. You know, that ends up being a problem. All I have now is plausible deniability. Like, I can go,
Listen, I love plausible deniability.
neither of
Deny,
us remember what
deny.
happened. That's
I
right.
don't recall that.
Neither of us have documentation of what happened. Let's just let it go. Let's just let it bygones. You know, we can do it all the way that it happens.
Although we do have a sense of we got to be right. That's why we have, hey Siri, what is this?
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah.
What day was George Washington actually born on?
Right.
Yeah, it's the instant gratification, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just got to know right now. Let me do it.
And it's the same thing with the upside down plane, right? If I would not have been quite as interested to watch that on CNN as the dude standing outside the plane and it just crashed.
It would have been just another plane crash because we just had one where the helicopter
Right.
hit the plane
Oh
in
my
midair.
Right.
And
there
we
were
didn't
4
get
angles of that.
there were, and it
God.
was just like, okay, we're just absorbing it through the standard broadcast news.
All of that is so insane.
But to add the element of this guy's getting out of the plane and it's really happening,
Right.
made it that much
But
more.
you know, I think the mass availability though as well. People, you know, boy, the world's scarier. There's more overdoses. There's more kidnappings. More whatever. Are there, or is it just there's more cameras?
Yeah.
And now we're learning that all these things happen.
Well,
you
the
know?
statistics show that all that's going down, right? Statistics say that all that's declining, but it does seem like there's more because there's more accessibility. And I think, you know, the big challenge with all of this is that the genie's out of the bottle, right? We can't not have there's a level of kind of like societal addiction that we get to, like addicted to where we're headed. But at the same time, we can't put it back. I mean, we can't go back to the 1980s.
Man, I would go back to a pager and a payphone in a skinny minute. I will tell you right now. I will go back. I will volunteer for that.
Yeah. Now that'll just be the retro thing. So that's how
Right.
that'll work, right? You know, people start carrying pagers because it's retro, you know. But I'm sure you did too. I worked at a time where I had a pager and a payphone.
Yeah.
And I got a page, and I would have to find a payphone and put in my code, to make the phone call and,
But even in the old days of the old cell phones, the old bag phones and things, you still, you had a pager. Remember, you'd put in, like, you'd find a way with your friends or your partner or whatever. You could, give a message through a pager through a series of numbers. Like, remember we used to put in boobies?
Oh, yeah.
That was always fun in the calculator.
Yeah.
You could spell out 5513808. I don't know, whatever it was. But
you flip it upside down
That's
so
right,
it's
it was
boobs.
boobies.
Yeah. That's fun.
But what was nice about
Good
that
times.
though, those were good times.
It's a family show. So
we all have boobs.
yeah.
Jeez,
So
Greg.
last year I started watching The Wire on HBO because I had never seen it, and I'd always heard it was one of the better shows of all time. And the entire plot of the first season of The Wire is around pagers and cell phones, because the drug dealers are paging each other with certain codes. They know which phone to go to because they know which ones are bugged and all that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking it's a show that would not exist in 2025 because none of that is possible.
Right.
You can just get access to things. So I think it's interesting. But back to the genie out of the bottle thing, I just don't think we can go back. I think we've got to deal with the world as it is, the immediacy of that availability of information, and then also, the AI influences and all of that stuff. I don't think we can fight it.
No, I mean it's going to go no matter what. I mean, I think you're right. But for generations, you tried doing that. People didn't want cars.
Yeah.
People didn't want television. Get out of here. I mean, so that's just the natural evolution of things that society, technology changes, society changes, and you got to roll with it, or it can just be the old "get off my lawn" grumpy old man, which I'm happy doing with my pager.
Look, I mean, it's inevitable. We've got to get to that grumpy old man stage. Let's go. Let's be the grumpy old man now. That's fine. I don't mind. I'll take it. Brian's got 4 little kids, so like he's got to not be the grumpy.
He's
old
got
man
to stay young
yet.
for a little bit.
Yeah. That's right.
fine.
But I'm looking beyond the grumpy old man to the I just crap my pants and I can say whatever I want stage.
Right.
You're gonna hike your pants up to your chest and
See what happens when you have 4 little kids later in life. They're going to graduate and I'm going to be ready to retire.
Right.
And there's no in between. It's going to be skip the grumpy old man right on to give me the rocker at the old folks home.
Yeah.
and
it's going to be
I'm
like
just going to say whatever that comes to my mind.
But you're going to be calling his friends yahoos and rapscallions.
and-
My dad always said rapscallions.
Pull your pants up.
Like, that's right. Who taught you to dress like that? Who wears pajamas out in public?
My uncle he was a grumpy old man, and I was a little punk kid. He always tell me to go peddle my papers.
I don't know what that
He'd go peddle your papers. I don't even know what that means. Even then, I didn't know what it meant. But
We're going to have to make up stuff, in our
Right.
generation. We don't have any good stuff.
go tie your shoes.
Speaking of the grumpy old man,
Uh-huh.
that was one of my favorite sketches on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, yeah. I liked it.
And I liked it.
Yeah. Dana Carvey. What an amazing cast that was. Yeah. I think it's very interesting as we go towards being in a place where, let's say we are seasoned citizens, not yet, but we're headed to that place.
We're I like to say we're in the journeyman stage right now. You've got the rookie stage, journeyman
Right.
stage, and then the senior stage. So we're
We
journeyman.
Master Chief, right? We're at that point. But I always worry about whether or not does music suck or am I just old? And I got to figure it out, right? And almost everybody I talk to who's my age says, yes, music is terrible right now. And I go, well, I feel like 50-year-old men have been saying that since I was a little kid.
Probably.
Right? And so I don't know that that's the case.
I mean, listen, Bon Jovi doesn't suck. Well, old Bon Jovi. New Bon Jovi, not so much. I'm not a big fan. But
whatever.
But old Bon Jovi still rocks, man. Still rocks.
Yeah, Tyler's a huge Bon Jovi fan.
It's the second Bon Jovi
I know.
reference. I've kicked that up.
So that we would talk about Bon Jovi a lot. There is a great SNL sketch, by the way, of Bon Jovi sitting around the practice room in 1982 or 3, trying to come up with a name for the band.
Right.
And all the band members are coming up with names, and John just keeps going, no, I think it should be Bon Jovi. And everybody goes, what does that mean? Why would we call it Bon Jovi? You're just a singer. Shut up. And
That's funny.
So it's funny. It's ubiquitous with the name now.
Of course.
But yeah, it's definitely so. tell me about the boat stuff. So how did that happen? So Tyler's also a boat captain.
Okay.
Yeah.
He also is
I'm not bored,
apparently
man.
works with Rick Kraut with the Spirit of Lake
Oh,
Erie.
nice. Do you do the tours?
I don't do those now. I was first officer. We brought it back to life. Rick and Norm are amazing. The team is great. It's a great boat. It's a beautiful boat.
Yeah.
You guys talk to them. I mean, they spend a lot of resources putting together an incredible vessel for that kind of tour. I do a different kind of tour.
And if there was ever a way to elaborate what living in Columbia is like, it's like we have two random guests on our podcast, one of which I've known forever, one of which I just met, and they work together.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that.
And we're partners in the little boat, the private boat side too. We work together. We both have pontoon boats, and so that's kind of how we met initially several years ago. But yeah, we work together a lot. But no, man, I grew up boating in New England. 2 or 3 months out of the year, because otherwise it's ice. Mm-hmm. And I moved to Charleston, got a jet ski. I was living near Wapoo down on James Island, and I was that guy that I can't stand on Lake Murray. I had no clue. I'm out jumping waves and having fun, waving at the cruise ships. Just gives me willies now thinking about that. But I moved here in 2005, found Lake Murray, and started boating, and loved it. And as always happens, I get a boat, and Bill will say, "Hey, listen, if I give you $100, Mary and I got our anniversary's coming up. Can you take me out?" Sure, man, $100. That's Jack Daniels money. It turns out in maritime, the minute I take more than gas money, I become a commercial operation, and it is a federal offense for me to take $1 for passage, unless you're a boat captain. And I learned that a friend of mine was doing some fishing charters the same way.
I think you should know that.
It's maritime, it's federal, it's Coast Guard. I didn't know, man. It's $100. And a friend of mine who's doing fishing tours the same way got stopped by the Coast Guard and was presented with a $10,000 fine.
Ooh. Wow.
And I went,
That's a way to find out.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the offshoot of that was I recognized what I was doing in offering charters was, maybe something of I love boating. I love being on the water. If I'm not doing news or what, I love being out there. And so I said, okay. So I looked into getting a captain's license, through Sea School, through the Coast Guard. It's a very arduous process. It's not easy.
So it's not like just going to take a class and get your motorcycle license?
It is not a quick little check ride now. And once I got my captain's license, I can charge. And this was about 9 years ago, and I started building my boat business from that.
Huh.
I drive your boat, and now I've got into teaching. I'm a national instructor.
Can I go see you, take the lessons, and then get my boat captain license through you?
You can't. You can't get your captain's license. You can if you have the time. So to actually be a licensed captain, you have to have 365 verified sea days from the time you were 16 until your present age, and that means verified meaning I have to know the date, the whole number, where I was for 365 days. The last 90 of which have to be in the last 3 years. And then you have to go to actual sea school, and that's a 60-hour course. I'm a master, so it's a 90-hour course for me, course for that. And then you have to go through the whole process because you go through Homeland Security, you have a TWIC card, you have a full comprehensive, when you're a pilot, you have to take a full medical every 5 years, a full medical screen, drug testing. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just, I got my online card from DNR.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole process. But, it was worth it to me. I worked hard. And I've built a pretty cool little, can I say Lake Murray boat tours?
Yeah. So you're not super busy. So tell me what drives this? What makes you do all of these different things? Why not just pick one lane and go with it?
One lane is not fun, Bill.
Well, yeah. Well, I've always seen having multiple revenue streams has always been kind of the way I've worked. Law enforcement's pretty stable. It doesn't pay very well.
Right.
So having a side gig, most any fireman or cop is going to be a lawn guy or have some sort of side gig. And that's just the way it has always been. That's kind of how I came up. I always had radio as a side gig. When I got into the media full time, media is not a very stable business. And so, because of that, I figured, okay, listen, if something happens to my TV job, I've got to have something else to do. Mm-hmm. It's also why I keep my commission for police, because I can always go back somewhere and police if I had to. When AI comes and takes my job.
Right.
But, working local, and I'm, up until recently, I've been single, and my plan wasn't necessarily to have a family. My plan was to be me and my dog and, doing whatever. So, what drives me financially is just, my grandmother, when I was growing up, I lived with my great grandmother. My mom kicked me out of the house. That's a whole different story. That's a different episode. But anyway, I ended up living
We like
with my
stories.
Yeah.
We like stories.
I ended up living with
That's what
my.
we do here. Yeah. So
At the time, I was 13 and she was like 75 probably, but she lived in a world where she was surviving on Social Security and her husband's pension. He had passed, but she still got the pension. And there was nothing else coming in. There was no Walmart. She couldn't go greet at Walmart. She couldn't go, do something else. That just wasn't done. And so we had just that penny. And, if something sideways happened, it could literally wreck the family. And so I always just worry. I was like, I don't want to be in that position where, at the time VCRs were like $300, whatever. Where if I wanted a VCR, I want to go get a VCR.
Yeah.
And so I've just always hustled. And it's just the way I'm built, I guess. But I pick and choose. I do things that I'm passionate about. I love boating, love law enforcement. I love telling stories. So I do things that are in my wheelhouse. I don't just go randomly sell cars or something on the side. Not that I wouldn't.
you
but,
could probably sell cars. I don't know.
But I mean, that's what drives it. It's stuff that I'm interested in. Eventually I'll transition off of television and, I'll do boating full time. It's kind of my, another 10 years, if we have TV left that long.
Selling boats.
Selling boats.
Selling boats. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just driven by what I'm passionate about. I'm interested in the water. So I figured out a way to make money at it.
Yeah.
I mean, I MC. I figured out a way, okay, if I'm good enough on stage, people will pay me to get on stage and talk. And they do.
And they do.
Like you with making videos. People pay you to do this.
Yeah. And I'm still excited about it after
Yeah.
all these years. Yeah. So that makes total sense. I remember so many times I would be videoing something you would be emceeing, and I'd be like, I know for sure Tyler doesn't know anything about this group, right? He's getting up there to MC, and I guarantee you he doesn't know anything about this, and somehow he's able to talk for 45 minutes. It's like it's like one of those things when you recognize you got a talent.
Yeah.
You just
Now that you say that,
yeah.
I think the first place we met was at the BIA Regal Awards.
Oh yeah,
When you
I did
did
host
that.
that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
sure did. I sure did. Yeah.
And he does
In
it
like 2011.
Yeah.
2012.
Yep.
Right.
Somewhere in there.
We ran it. I ran across Tyler again last year. He hosted the talent show for Midlands Tech when we were shooting that, and I was like, "Yep, there he is again, just riffing." Amazingly, just getting in there. And I tell you what else might be in your future is politics.
I don't know, man. I'm good at being number two. I'll be a good advisor.
Right. Vice politics.
I don't want anybody getting too deep into my closets. That's all.
Oh, that's true. That's true. They would dig into your closets.
Yeah. I don't know. Some things are
Sometimes
like
you
that.
don't want that. Yeah. That makes total sense.
Yeah. No, it's just relationship building. The sales. I mean, I'm selling myself, right?
Right.
And just practicing. You do it enough. Talking and interviewing. I've done literally thousands and thousands of television interviews.
Right.
When I was at Fox, we had 20 shows a month. We had a 4-hour show. I generally had 4 to 6 guests on a day. You do the math over a year. I mean, I'm doing 1,200 interviews a year, and I've been doing television in Columbia since 2006. So I'm coming up on 19 years.
Right.
After a while, it is almost cruise control. I mean, I still.
Instinct.
So we asked Dondi this similar question. So what is it like being a local celebrity?
It's wonderful and it sucks at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It is wonderful that if I need something, I can sure call in a favor. It does help. It does help. You go onto the counter, you need some extra help, and go, hey, aren't you Tyler? Yes, I sure am.
Yes, I am.
It's nice. I build relationships through the years. If I want to get a pair of tickets to something, I generally can pick up the phone and get a pair of tickets. I want to go to an oyster roast, that kind of thing. I've built those kind of relationships. That's nice. Not so much when I'm hungover walking through Walmart and, I got my hat on sideways and, and I haven't showered for 3 days. Or, of course, when you're out hanging out, having some adult beverages and you get a little loose and somebody goes, hey, it's Tyler Ryan. And you're like, oh, God, please. No.
Not right now.
Not right now.
Not right now. I'm in my own time here. I'm in my private time.
I was driving up.
You're a
lady.
celebrity, so anytime you're out in the public,
That's right.
you're fair game.
That's right.
Yeah, and I take it. Sometimes it's annoying, but listen, I mean, that's how I make a living. So, when I see the celebrities get angry, listen, you're the one this is how you make a living. Shut up, deal with it. I don't get angry. I'm just kind of like, But I was driving up Lady Street one day, and if you've ever ridden with me, I drive like from the north. I'm I got places to go. And his car was going wicked slow. And so I went around him and I was riding his ass and honked at him that he didn't go off fast on the red light and fast enough. I got up a couple blocks up and I get out. He finally caught up and he rolls down the window. He goes, "That's all right, Tyler. I'll see you tomorrow morning on TV." I was like, "Hey, how are you?"
That's
Sorry
great.
about that.
It's an experience I've never had in Columbia. I at least get to be anonymous for now until the podcast takes off.
There you go.
Then I can experience the same problem. You
But
know?
that was a funny day. Yeah, he saw me drive by him in the mirror, but I know that guy.
That's amazing. That's funny. Well, so tell me, what is your favorite Bon Jovi song?
Man, there's so many. Nothing new, by the way. None of the new stuff. I mean, "Wanted" is the classic.
Yeah.
I really like the song "Just Older."
Okay.
I'm not old, just older.
Okay.
That's a great record. It's just singing about, hey, age happens, but it's still there. So that's
Yeah.
probably one of my favorites.
So it changes for you as you get context.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Like I said, the new stuff, I'm not. I went to his concert a couple of years ago in Charlotte, and I was so disappointed, as was everybody disappointed, by the way, because it was a room full of people like me, and there were a few kids. Well, John's still making music. Well, he's still making music. He wants people to
Play
like
the
his
new
new
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
But I've never been to a show. First of all, I should have known we were on the wrong track because he played "Wanted Dead or Alive" like 4 songs in.
Right.
And that's the closer.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, if he's doing that now, what's he going to close with?
Right.
But he plays a few of the classics, and everybody's screaming and singing along. Well, he starts playing songs that nobody's ever heard of, and so all the guys who are my age and girls, we're literally sitting down, and I'm looking around, and I'm up at Charlotte, and we're just kind of like,
When somebody's been doing it as long as he is, you could do a whole concert of hits.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You don't have to bring out the new
But
stuff.
it-
Right?
His concert in Greenville that I went to was great.
Yeah.
Was it all the old stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He definitely, on this tour, this last one, he definitely was trying to push his new music.
Well,
in.
my wife and I got to see Prince
Right.
in 1998
Oh, that's awesome.
while he was in dispute with his record company. So he was not technically allowed to play any of his hit songs
Okay.
in his tour because of the record company. So everyone that he played was in a medley.
All right.
So he played a Purple Rain medley. He played a Sign of the Times medley. He played a Diamonds and Pearls medley. And everything else was the new stuff that he had recorded at his house while he didn't have a record company. And we left that thing going, that was really not very satisfying.
Sure.
Because we are fans of Purple Rain. That's what we wanted to hear. That's what she and I came to hear, Purple Rain. And I don't like that we didn't hear Purple Rain.
Should be a disclaimer
Yeah.
before you get to when you
Like,
buy
we're
the
not playing
tickets.
this.
You have to check this box to know that
By
I
the
will not
way,
be hearing
yeah.
"Wanted Dead or Alive" as the last song.
This is the new tour, and it's all new
Here's
songs.
the set list. You
Right,
want to
here's
come or
the
not?
set list. That would be so helpful.
Do you want to come or not?
That's right. That's part of the grumpy old man stuff. They're
That's
like,
right.
I'm not going to a concert until I know exactly what they're playing.
I can't sing along and yell "Freebird." I'm not going.
That's right. That's right. I went to a concert with my daughter this year. It was her first concert, and she's a huge fan of the band, and we drove to Raleigh to go see the concert. And she is on a Discord with other fans of the band who are reporting what the set lists are on the other shows, right? And so they're tracking what the set lists are. So she was able to predict the set list. The minute we sat down, she knew what the set list was going to be, right? She knew what was coming up and all this kind of stuff because the kids were talking about it on the Discord.
Can you hold that thought?
Yeah.
What's Discord?
Oh, yeah.
I'm assuming it's an app. I don't know.
Wow.
Proceed.
How about that? So I
Unpause.
you have a teenage daughter, so she's probably on Discord. It's just a way for them to talk to each other.
Okay.
So
All right.
Reddit?
Yes, of course I know Reddit.
Similar in a lot of ways to Reddit. But it's immediate, right? So I've been on Discord several times. I don't like it because what happens is that the feed is just constantly hitting you, right? If you're on a popular Discord, it's just going and going and going. When I see her on her phone, I mean, it's just like text is just go. It's like the Matrix. It's like the green things in the Matrix going through, and that's what it looks like. But anyway, she gets all of her information about this band on Discord, and so I thoroughly enjoyed the concert. But she was very prepared going into this, knowing exactly what it was, knowing what they were going to do, all the stunts, what the
Right.
sets were going to look like. I mean, they had sent pictures and they knew it. And I just don't love doing concerts like that. I want to be surprised. I want them to take me on a ride, and
I don't know, man. I am the guy that will, if I'm going to watch a movie or watch a binge watch,
Yeah.
I'm going to Wikipedia it. I'm going to know who the killer is.
right.
I've always been that way.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I want to know what's going to happen, and I don't mind watching it unfold again. But I'm like, what? When I'm binge watching,
Yeah.
Whatever movie or whatever show on Netflix, and I'm looking ahead. Say, okay, by season 8, this guy's dead. Whatever.
Yeah.
See, I don't want to. I don't want to do that. I'm watching. I'm watching the series called Apple Cider Vinegar on Netflix right now, which is about a girl in Australia who faked brain cancer and then started an app and a like foundation to raise money for kids with cancer, and then didn't give them any of the money. Oops. So anyway, the series is about her, and one of the characters has cancer. Obviously, one does have cancer, one doesn't. That's kind of the contrast that they're making. And I found out the fate of the girl who had cancer, and it just kind of like, I was like, well, that's a down. I got to watch 4 episodes now, knowing that this girl's not going to make it. You know? And so I don't want to be surprised at all. I want to. I mean, I don't want to know anything. I want to be kind of like, I want to.
You want to take that arc. You want to take that.
That's right.
That arc.
If there's a movie I want to see, I hardly even watch the trailer nowadays, because the trailers give away so much detail, about the plot and all that stuff. And I just love the idea of, like, when I was a kid, when we went to go see, Empire Strikes Back, we knew that the things that were going to happen. Everybody talked about Darth Vader being Luke Skywalker's dad, all that stuff. But until you go to the theater, it's not confirmed, because there's not 1,000, stories about it everywhere, and you don't get that stuff ruined for you. When Return of the Jedi came along and they were rebuilding the Death Star, and you got little glimpses of it in the trailer, but you're like, are they rebuilding the Death Star? Like, all of that mystery is what's exciting about that stuff.
That's fair.
And I think that a lot of the modern trailers just trounce it. They show you everything that's going to happen in the movie.
Well, they got to hype it up, right? They got to show how impressive they are with the CGI and their AI and the whatever.
And the little things. But every movie trailer is the same now. They all have the same format, and it's like it gets to be a little tedious as we go along. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for doing this. We typically end with 5 questions. I've already asked you one. Does that count? Favorite Bon Jovi song? I don't know. Let's go through. Let's see if we get 5. I don't know.
We always have 5.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's just a bonus.
That's true. That's true. So we'll start with a favorite movie.
Oh my gosh. Pretty much any baseball movie with Kevin Costner.
Oh, nice.
Probably Field of Dreams.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Was he Bull Durham too?
He was in Bull Durham. Absolutely.
Yeah.
He did For the Love of the Game, where he was a
good
pitcher. I loved that. He was a Detroit
Tiger.
Tiger pitcher. It was his last game, perfect game, finishing an amazing season. That was a great movie. Man, listen, I'm rough and tumble. Like I said, I'm an old school cop, but I am a sucker for a Hallmark movie or a rom-com with Kevin Costner. I just love it.
Yes, I love a Hallmark movie.
I do too.
100%. What would be your last meal on death row?
Oh gosh, I mean, I love to eat. Probably steak. Probably, I would think steak.
Steak's a good answer.
Leave me with a nice full belly.
Yeah.
Steak.
Yeah.
Vegetables.
Yeah.
Maybe some nice broccoli with cheese on it.
Get some healthy vegetables, some vitamins going through right before
Old Sparky.
Right before you get.
That would be interesting. The death row meal. As we've continued to ask these questions, I've started thinking about, like, okay, I would want to know, how am I going to die?
Right. Is it lethal injection? Is it
lethal injection? Is there anything I could sneak into the meal that would counteract the lethal injection?
Right.
Or
Right.
probably not. But
if you had like
curious.
super hot wings and it made you sweat. Like,
right.
does it help you with the electric chair?
That's right.
Oh, you're talking like Green Mile. I know what you're
right.
saying.
Yeah.
I got you.
It just doesn't work. You know?
It doesn't work.
I think there's like 4 tries, right? They get 4 tries. If it doesn't work, you go home, right?
Is it firing squad that I can?
I'm not 100% sure on the rules, if I'm being fair. So
I think the last person that was sentenced to death in South Carolina was firing squad.
Was it really?
I think so.
Yeah, well, I know he was sentenced with that, and then they didn't do it that was like a year ago. They were going to do it with the firing squad, but they didn't.
They didn't end up doing it.
I don't think they ended up doing it.
Yeah, that's all crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we talked about with
digress.
Christian Nimi when we very first came up with that question. Like, do they do the last meal? Is that a real thing, or is that something that
I think so.
Yeah, I looked it up. It's state by state. Some states do it.
Based
some
on
don't,
comments, we feel like it
yeah,
is,
yeah, we feel like
it's true.
It's a commonality that all of us think about that. You know, that we understand what it is. Okay, awesome. Favorite song in general. So not Bon Jovi song, but what's your favorite song?
Gosh, there's so many great records. I'm on to In Living Color.
Oh,
It's one of my favorite.
Nice.
Jamie Johnson.
Right.
I like the ballad. I mean, listen, I'll bang my head with anybody, but I like rock ballads. Home Sweet Home by Motley Crue.
Yeah.
A good rock ballad.
That's a great one.
I like where country music's going, and go back to some of the rock, the southern roots. I really like some country songs. Some I don't even know the name of anymore. I used to be big in country, but yeah, those are a couple that come to mind.
Nice. Tyler was a country DJ for a little while, so
A long time.
long time. Yeah. See, that's 3. What's your favorite season?
Probably fall.
Really?
We're just gonna eliminate this question because everybody says
I
fall.
would have banked on summer, spring,
'cause you're a
boating
boat
season.
captain.
Yeah, yeah.
That's true.
Well,
but you
I
do
know.
a lot of boating in the fall, so
Yeah, I mean, I just, and I think that's come from back home. I just like the sound. I like the crisp in the air back home because we don't get the sweltering heat back in
The
Vermont.
foliage.
Yeah.
But it's true. But I it sounds stupid. The crunch of the leaves.
Yeah.
I like the smell. Fall has, at least back home, and fall has a different smell. And so I think fall.
Yeah. Columbia fall smells like footballs.
Yeah,
So,
it does. It
yeah,
does.
that's the smell.
Yep. Sweat and disappointment.
That's
Yep,
right.
That's right.
Grilling, that kind of thing. But yes, mostly disappointment for us. But not this year.
No.
We were a little disappointed, but whatever. It's better than most times.
Sure.
Better than most seasons. All right, last one.
Favorite fictional character?
Yeah.
Ooh, gosh. Ethan Hunt comes to mind.
Oh yeah.
Do you like Ethan Hunt?
Nice.
Indiana Jones.
Sensing a theme.
Yeah.
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 That's very good.
Tyler's a man's man.
Absolutely. 100%.
But I dig both of those.
Yeah, I
Right?
know.
Yeah. I love the theory that that in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones has no effect on the outcome of the movie.
You stole that from Big Bang Theory.
I don't remember where I saw it, but I love the idea that I did not think about that until I heard that
Just
fact.
blew my mind.
And then once
But
you
for-
think
but
about
for
it,
they got
They
the
did a
art
whole
from him,
Big
though.
Bang Theory episode about that.
did they really? I didn't. I knew I'd heard it somewhere. I thought I heard it on TikTok, but yeah,
Interesting.
Sheldon's girlfriend just ruins the movie for him.
Blossom. Yeah.
Blossom, yeah.
Yeah. He basically, like, they find the tomb anyway.
Right.
Regardless of whether he was there. He falls in the pit of snakes, gets out of the pit of snakes, whatever. He gets captured by the Nazis. He's
Yeah.
basically passive while they open the Ark.
Yeah, he's
and
tied- he's
all
tied
he
to the
really
stuff.
does is just cover his eyes so he doesn't get melted. But he doesn't have any effect on the outcome of the movie.
You blew my mind right now. Bill Grant has blown my mind.
Go back and watch it with that in mind. It is mind blowing.
Especially when you like spoilers. So, spoiler alert, doesn't actually do anything.
Wait, they found the Ark?
Yeah, I know. We've talked about a bunch of interesting things on this podcast, and primarily, like, for instance, Kevin McAllister from Home Alone is a psychopath, and could have just gone to the neighbor's house and called the police.
Yeah.
you know.
Would have been just as easy.
Yeah, than torturing these guys for 3 days. But yeah, Indiana Jones has no effect on the outcome of the movie. So, not so much in the third movie. So he actually has some.
Third one is the one I think is
Him
better.
and his dad with Sean
Okay, I
Connery.
did. I
Yeah.
liked that one. I
Last
didn't.
Crusade.
The middle one is the second one I didn't like.
Yeah,
With
Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom.
Yeah, with Tiny. What was the little kid's name? I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Short round.
Short round.
Short round. Yeah.
I didn't care for that one.
Yeah. He.
You do know with the one with Sean Connery at the end, that was a Templar night. By the
Oh,
way.
yeah. Yeah.
Part of we're talking before the show. We were talking
Yeah.
about masonry and Shriners and becoming a Templar Knight, and that comes from masonry.
Right.
And the Templar Knight, actually, one of the sacred missions of the Templar Knights is to guard the Holy Grail.
Right.
So that was a Templar Knight at the end of the Last Crusade.
Nice.
Not for nothing. But there you
Well,
go.
whatever. Yeah, I only know that from movies, so I don't know. Like I told you, I've never met a Shriner, so I
Sure.
don't really know anything about it. So it's cool. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for coming
Man,
on.
this
This
has
was
been
really
great. Thank
fun,
you.
and it's good to see you after all these years. And I'm sure we'll run across each other again soon.
We'll be at an event somewhere.
Somewhere,
I'll be on a
yeah.
stage. You'll have a camera.
Yeah.
We'll see each other
It's
again.
the natural order of things.
That's right. Gus, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
It's been awesome.